Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome back, Sangat after that short break where we were having such a laugh with Hyde, who is a Sikh comedian, full of jokes and full of character. Now we have a lovely lady by the name of Harmeet Kaur Bharya, who is the author of Poetic Secrets, and we're going to find out a little bit about her journey and also some of the difficult times that she's gone through having anxiety and depression. She's got an amazing story, which we're going to be finding out a little bit more about that right now. So let me go over and introduce her. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Benji, what an inspiration. You're here to talk to us about your journey, which, speaking to me and digesting that has been, it's quite a difficult thing to even think about how you went through that and being a positive inspirational woman who's written a book by Poetic Secrets. So let's start off with a little bit of an introduction to yourself.
My name's Harmeet Kaur Bharya, as you said. I'm 35 years old. I'm currently working. I've got a daughter. I'm married, yeah, I live quite locally, and I really enjoy writing.
And how did you get into writing? If we could go right back to when did you start doing that? What made you want to start writing?
So I learned how to write poetry when I was 14 years old, like you do at school, and then really I think because of all the different life experiences that I had, it almost became an outlet for me to express my emotions, quietly in the corner. And I think that was how that journey began.
And I know that you spoke very briefly to me about this, but you lost your father. And
yes.
Was that a reason to start writing more, or what happened? Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah. So my father was quite ill from most of my life, let's say. I would say, and he was in and out of hospital quite a lot, and so obviously when I learnt to write poetry, I would express some of those emotions of him being ill, how that makes us feel. There were times when we thought we were going to lose him, when we were a lot younger, me and my sister, and basically it's when he passed away. It was a very, very difficult time, and I'm sure a lot of people experience this kind of grief. But for me, writing those emotions out was a coping strategy, and I did start to write more when he passed on. I had written quite a lot before he'd passed on as well, and actually he'd found my poetry file before he'd passed on, and he'd actually asked me, where did you get all these poems from? He thought I'd maybe just copied them from somewhere, and I said, no, Dad, this is something that I've written. And he said, oh, you really ought to get this published one day. And I thought, I didn't really understand the publishing process at that stage, and I just carried on writing, and I didn't really think much about what he'd said. But he did say to me, why don't you type these up? They're all sort of handwritten. Why don't you type these up and things like that? There was a lot of encouragement from him. And then when he passed on at his funeral, I wrote a poem dedicated to him, and I read that out at his funeral, because I felt it was the best sort of thing that I could do at that time.
Yeah.
And then it just basically, I kept on writing, and then I think I had a bit of a pause when I got married, because obviously settling into married life, it was quite an eventful year in terms of I got married, we bought a new house, I landed myself in a new job, I fell pregnant. A lot of things happened that year, so writing kind of took the back seat a bit. So there was a bit of a pause there for some time.
And you've obviously gone through some other difficult challenges in your life as well, from your father passing. What happened after that?
So obviously I was quite, it disrupted my education quite a bit, I would say, but I still managed to complete my degree and, come out of that. And then I obviously started looking to settle down, and I got married. And I think that the next really sort of difficult thing that occurred in my life was the fact that when I gave birth to my daughter, it was a very traumatic experience for me. And that had some physical implications with my health, and that led me to basically suffer from postnatal depression.
Right.
Because you know, it was just a very, very difficult experience, and I did some writing during that time, you know, just sort of writing about my feelings. But obviously I had a newborn, so you're quite limited to what you can do, and you know, when your state of mind isn't as clear, it sort of almost holds you back a little bit. So.
And in terms of seeking any support at the time, did you do that?
Yeah, so with my postnatal depression, I had some counselling, and I mean, I had to have a lot of physiotherapy and things like that as well, because physically I was having some issues, but I had the counselling. I think it was for about 6 weeks or something like that on the NHS, and that was basically it, really, in terms of the help. And I think gradually, as you begin to settle and you get to know what works, what doesn't work with the baby and everything, and you know, I got busy with her, and as time went on, it got a bit easier.
And then you felt better in yourself
I
as well?
felt better in myself, yes.
How was it in the time that you were suffering from depression with your husband and your marriage? Was there any pressure on the marriage?
I think that it must have been very difficult for my husband, because I probably wasn't a very easy person to cope with, you know, being sad, crying, you know, just not being that upbeat self. It's like it changes you, it changes how you are as a person. So yeah, I do believe it must have had, you know, must have been very difficult for him as well.
But how was he? Did he support you?
He was supportive, yes,
Yeah.
of course. He was very, very supportive. You know, he wanted me to get better. He wanted me to feel better. And, you know, sometimes all I wanted was for him just to listen,
Yeah.
not to say anything. And, you know, we've come out of this really together.
Which is amazing, because within the community, the struggles then start from when you have had a child,
Yes.
and your marriage can you stay
Yes,
together,
yes.
or you can break up. But the fact that he supported
Yes.
being Sikh is amazing to see, that he encouraged you and wanted you to get through
Yes.
it. So that's fantastic, very positive to see that. But from then, what happened? Because you had another really terrible experience, didn't you?
Yeah, so when my daughter was about 2.5 years old, we decided we wanted to have a second child. And with my daughter, we conceived her very quickly, very easily. But however, when it come to conceiving the second child, it wasn't so easy. It took us, you know, about just over 2 years to conceive our second child. And we conceived twins. And when I went for the 7-week scan, they said that I had lost the complete pregnancy, when previously I'd been, you know, we'd seen a heartbeat on the scan. And it was a very, it was like my whole world came crashing down in one go, literally. You know, 1 minute you're making plans, oh my goodness, it could be twins, you know. And then they tell you, you know, they said one baby, you know, will survive, because it's a scan, that's what I was told, and it's good heartbeat, everything's going really well. And then go back for a second scan to check what was going on with the one that wasn't looking quite right. And they said, we're so sorry, but, you know, you have lost this pregnancy, and there's just nothing we can do about it. There's no explanation. It's just one of those things.
That's what I was going to ask you. Was there a reason?
No, they just said it's just, you know, something must have been significantly wrong for that not to have survived. And isn't it better that, you know, it didn't go on, and, you know, there's more heartbreak later. So I've had to ultimately accept that.
How did you do that? Because that's a difficult thing to accept.
It was very difficult. And I'll tell you what the difference between that was and the postnatal depression was. The fact that with the postnatal depression, I've got my baby to hold. I've got my baby there. But with the miscarriage, I didn't have anything to hold at the end of that. That was the most difficult thing, that I was empty and I had to accept. And, you know, I fell into a very deep, dark depression because of that. I became very anxious, and it was one of the most difficult times of my life. But I sought help at at that stage.
From who and
So
where?
I went and did something called, a GP recommended it, it was something called CBT, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy.
Yeah.
And they teach you about coping mechanisms. So, you know, I was feeling isolated, I couldn't, you know, leave home some days, or I was feeling really, some days I didn't want to wake up in the morning. You know, that sort of, that drive, it wasn't there. I was sort of quite fearful about doing a lot of the normal activities, and they teach you gradually these strategies on how to overcome it. You know, if you have panic, the breathing, all that kind of stuff. And once I started to incorporate that into my life, I started to feel a bit better. I felt that I could do a little bit more and a little bit more, and that sort of those feelings of dark, it's almost like, the way I describe it is I was alive but I was dead inside already.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only way that I can describe it. And you know, there's this thing about, I think, you know, some may think that it's like self-inflicted, or it's in the head, or that kind of thing. But medically, when a woman gives birth, or even with miscarriage, your hormones are all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, there's fluctuations in that, and that there is a medical reason for why, you know, you get the baby blues and things like that, you feel teary, there is that. But then when that keeps going on every day, and it might be because, and sometimes you have everyone around you, but you just feel so lonely inside. It's almost like what you're feeling and what you're saying is two different things.
So someone who's got depression or anxiety, I mean, what would you say to them?
I would say to them if they can use the support network that they've got around them. If they don't have one, then to try and build one. And for me, I have to be very honest here. When I felt so alone, and I felt I had people around me to help me, and I couldn't reach out to them, or I wasn't getting what I needed, the only thing that I could do was turn to Vaheguru. I mean, I remember when I was at that darker stage, I was saying, I was basically asking God and saying, please help me. I need your help. And I did that by doing ardas. You know.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about, actually. What was it that you were doing? So you did ardas. Were you doing any meditation?
Yes. So like things like meditation I started doing. And, you know, sometimes it was difficult for me to do Bart. Even when you're in such a low state of mind, it's even difficult to pick up a good guy and start doing the Bart. But then it was just like simple things like Vaheguru, and just Vaheguru, that's it.
And that helped you? So you're actually saying that helped you?
Yeah, so when I felt panic or anxious, or I felt sad or low, you know, I'll just go to the Gurdwara, even, and even, you know, I used to do it at home as well, at night time, even lying in my bed. You know, there were days when I couldn't get out of bed. So the only thing I could do was lie down and say, just Vaheguru in my mind, Vaheguru.
And you know what did saying Vaheguru, what did it make you feel? Like, how did you feel by doing that compared to if you were just to take some medicine, or to go out and speak to a counsellor, or to, you know, which are all great things.
Yes.
But to understand the essence of what Vaheguru means and why meditation is, what did it do for you?
It was something internal, it was something within. Like, it's something that I can't even describe. But it's just something that made me feel less empty and more fulfilled from within. And that's what I say to everyone. Everything that you need is in there. It's within.
Yeah.
You know, we go around, we think, oh, you know, I want that so-and-so to help me. I want that so-and-so to help me. We go around looking for it from others. But from my experience, what I needed was already there within me. And that's all I had. And you know what? They did help, and they did listen. And they helped me, and that is exactly how my book was born.
Right, you know what, let's talk about that, because I think it's amazing, right, where we talk about Vaheguru, it's there, God resides within us. That, you're saying, was your turning point, which led to, you know, talk to me about that.
So, at the end of last year, when I had my second miscarriage, having explained to you, you know, the dark place that I'd been to, I literally, so I had started working with a healing mentor just before I fell pregnant, actually. And we were doing things like yoga and just a sort of spiritual healing. And when I had the miscarriage, I said to her, I said, you know what, I can't go through that again. I can't go back there. Because I knew like the impact of my hormones dropping and all of that was going to make me feel a bit sad. I was worried for myself.
And can I just quickly ask you something? You know, 2 miscarriages you had in the space of how many years?
2 years.
Okay, so that's very close.
Yeah, so one in 2015 and then one at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I can't go back there. Like, it's taken me 2 years to get better. I don't want to go back there, you know. And then she said to me, why don't you just write a journal or something? Why don't you just write? And I thought, that's interesting. So in the new year, I went to my outhouse and I went just looking for a writing pad. And, you know, and bearing in mind at this time last year, I was praying, you know, I was sort of praying quite a lot as well, and, you know, asking Rab, please, you know, I don't want to go back there. I want to come out of this really strong, and all the work, that hard work, I don't want it to be wasted. So I think that's really important to mention. But anyway, I went to my outhouse to find this writing pad, and when I went to find literally my poetry file literally fell into my hands.
Wow.
And this is the poetry file that my mum had given to me just after I'd got married. So I've been married nearly 10 years now, and it had been sitting there. I looked at it and I thought, oh, I'll grab that as well, grab the writing pad, came inside, and I started reading those poems, and I looked at them and I thought, they're not that bad, actually. And it really sort of took me back to, you know, all those places where all that had come from. And I thought, I wonder if I could write again, like poetry. Could I write? Can I still write? Because it's been a bit of a gap. And would you believe it, when I put that pen down on paper, the words just came flowing. There were times when I would be in the bathroom and these lines would just, I don't know where they were coming from, but things were just coming out, and I felt the need to write them out. And I just kept writing, and it was therapy, it was therapeutic. And then I started looking into the fact that my dad had said, you know, about the poetry, and I started to look into the publishing process. I spoke to my husband about it, said, what do you think? And he said, yeah, if this is something you really want to do, why not find out about it? And that's how I got this published within 6 months. It took 6 months.
Amazing.
From January to sort of summer.
And tell me a little bit about this book in itself. Obviously, it's all your poetry.
Yeah.
But what is it all? Is it a bit of I guess piecing bits of your life or things that have happened in your life? Maybe you can read one from there.
So just to take you through, so the contents of it is really, I've got 4 parts. So the first one is called Flight, Fight, Freeze, and that's basically about the dark times, difficult times, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. And then I've got Childless with Child, which is about fertility and how that, you know, how that was. And then Mindful Healing. How did I go to such a dark place and come out of it? And that's the whole purpose of it. And then I've got some love poems at the end as well. But that first 3 parts are part of that that journey. I mean, I can read you one from the sort of anxiety, depression, which just, it summarizes it really.
And I think that would be really good for our viewers as well, because it's something we don't talk about as anxiety and depression.
Sure. So it's called Mind, Body and Soul. As my mind collapsed, so did my body and soul. I kept collapsing into the roots of a dark hole. My mind became as heavy as my body as light as the soul within me. Mind, body and soul all turned inside out, with each collapse planting a seed of doubt. Once each began to connect and mingle, the power grew greater than when single.
That's amazing. Such beautifully written.
Well, I think what I really want people to take from this is that when my mind collapsed, which is the first sentence, the mind, body and soul, for me, they work together. And when my mind collapsed, I started getting those physical symptoms. It affected my body. And then my soul, I felt empty. Yeah. And once I sorted the mind out, the rest followed. And that is the summary of my experience.
And is that what you're trying to say, really? It's all down to the way that we feel, the things that we think, the things that we do. Is it down to the mind?
Because it can just become very cyclical. You can really get, and it's not something you can just snap out of. It isn't, you know, it's something, it is medical. And it does take healing, and you do have to reach out for help. That's what I would say to the Sangat, that, you know, do reach out for help. Don't suffer in silence. You can get better. I'm an example of that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a true example. That's why I'm here, to let people know, if you're going through something like that now, you can get better, you can feel better, you can do it.
Yeah. And then you went on, in your life, there was another experience, wasn't there, after that, of what you had gone through, where last year you were saying...
Yes.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that.
So this was what I was saying about the second...
that was the one that was last year.
Yeah, the second miscarriage.
So it's really, really recent, where you
That's
had...
right.
So this is the thing, I try to get my head around... You know, like we have a lot of these issues in our community where we have anxiety, we have depression. Yes. And you're saying, you know, try and conquer the mind, which Guru Nanak Dev Ji did say, really, is that, you know, you conquer your mind, you can conquer the world. How would you describe or explain to the Sangat of how to do that?
Pray.
And that's the first thing you
would
say?
That is the first thing that I would say, just pray. Even when you don't feel like it, or you know, the will isn't there, or you just feel sad, dil nahi karta kuch karno, but just try. Just try, just say Vaheguru. You know, it's almost like I feel like I had to take 2 steps forward, you know, for Vaheguru to kind of walk
towards you,
towards me, literally.
But
that thing within you has to, you know, someone can't do that for you. You have to have that energy within yourself to want to do that.
But the thing is, that's a really powerful thing you've just said, because actually in Sikhi, that is a known thing, that you take 1 step towards your Guru and he will take 1,000 steps towards you. And you're an example of how it has changed your life. And, you know, there is this saying in the Guru Granth Sahib Ji where it does say, you know, regarding Mera Baid Guru Gobinda, where you don't actually really need all this medicine. You just need your Guru, which is your medicine, which is your everything, and it's going to help you through that, your saviour, and you're an example of it. And so going forward, you know, what are you working on maybe to help other people? Are you getting people coming to you, speaking to you about your experiences? Yeah, so with this book, I mean, this was just meant to be for me, and now it's turned into, you know, trying to help other people. And now that I feel like I've opened up about, you know, before it was like, it's almost like you can't talk about it, or you shouldn't talk about it, there's a taboo, you know, but people are opening up about their things. And that means, you know, it means that that change is coming, that mindsets are changing, people are becoming more willing and more accepting, you know, and people want to help each other, because that's how we can help each other, by talking to each other about it, by spreading awareness. Because if we all sit quietly in our homes and not say anything, then we will be suffering in silence. But do you not think that maybe our community are not aware of where they can get the support from, because they're just not sure, or they just don't want to talk to anybody about it because we keep it inside? Perhaps,
yeah, because the NHS, you know, it's helped me a lot, I would say. Even like family support has helped me. I mean, my dad is, unfortunately, he's not with us, but the amount of support that I've had from my mum, I couldn't have published this without my mum's support. You know, she's, you know, this is all of our support network. Even my mum says to me, when I was really sad, she used to say to me, just do part on me. Whatever you can do, how much you can do, just try to do as much as you can.
And it's the best advice,
It's the best advice that a mother could have given.
And I also think, you know, as a living experience, you've got to have that lived experience to do it, to know, which you have, and I can definitely say it has. You know, you can try all these other avenues, but the only thing that does help is your meditation and your bard. So that, you know, that is a very powerful thing. Can you tell me a little bit about, we've got a couple of minutes left, just what you're working on going forward, because you've got another book that you're writing.
So so obviously I've explored the dark side, the healing and all that kind of stuff in this book, and what I want to do next is positivity and gratitude. Sometimes I feel that, especially this is something I've learned as part of my journey, is that to be grateful for what we have. We always want more, but if we just look around us and just see, you know, I've got food today, I've got water today, basic things, got a roof over my head, basic things. We appreciate those. Everything else is really just secondary.
Yeah, that's a really inspirational thing to have coming out.
So that's why now I'm working on my second book, because I want to write about gratitude, about even the way like we speak sometimes.
Yes.
How can we give out kindness?
Yeah.
Firstly, kindness starts, I think, within. Be kind to yourself, then you're able to give it out, and then you're able to receive it also.
Yeah.
So these are the kinds of topics that I want to write about.
Well, I look forward to having you back on, but if I could get you to share your details, if our Pyari Sangat want to get in touch and maybe even speak to you about what you've been through.
Yeah, so I've got a website, it's www.poeticsecrets.com, and there is a contact form on there, so you can contact me via that stream. I'm on Instagram, so I Instagram quite a lot, and my handle for that is Harmeet Kaur Bharya, so you can find me on there, and I'm quite happy to people to reach out and to basically help them in any way that I can.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, and what an inspiration you are.
Thank you
know
so
what?
much.
Keep going, keep believing, because faith is the one thing that it's priceless, really. Take it with us on a daily basis and believe in him. So hopefully we'll have you back on to talk about your second book.
Thank you.
And we can spread the positivity, the contentment and gratitude. So Sangaji, I hope this you enjoy. Kita siga aaj da jada breakfast show. Two lovely souls that we had. We had a comedian on in the first half, an amazing inspirational Sikh woman who's written a book with all poetry in there, which is very inspirational for anyone that may be suffering anxiety or depression and you want to know more. Please get in touch. And if sade to koi galtiyan hoiyan, bulla chokan di maafi. Have a good weekend and a good week ahead, and stay in Chaddi Kala and happy, because that is what Sikhi is all about. And join us next week, where we'll be back with some more great guests. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.